Sniper trap. The sniper trap is a deceptive military tactic that leverages the skill and precision of snipers to manipulate enemy movements. In this tactic, snipers are strategically positioned to target key enemy personnel. As these targeted shots are taken, they're designed not just to reduce enemy numbers, but to provoke a reaction. The enemy, seeking to locate and counteract the sniper, moves into positions that they believe are advantageous. However, this movement often plays directly into the hands of the attacking force, exposing the enemy to further planned attacks or leading them into a larger ambush. Essentially, the sniper trap uses the initial sniper fire as bait, luring the enemy into a more vulnerable position where they can be effectively engaged by additional firepower or other tactical units. This tactic relies heavily on the discipline of the snipers, their ability to remain hidden, and the strategic planning of the military leaders to predict and manipulate enemy responses. Salvo. A salvo is a coordinated military tactic in which multiple weapon systems release their firepower at the same time. This can involve anything from artillery barrages and missile launches to volleys of small arms fire. The primary purpose of a salvo is to overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer volume of fire, increasing the probability of hitting the target while minimizing the enemy's ability to respond or evade effectively. This tactic is often used during the initial stages of an engagement to create a psychological impact, shaking the morale of the enemy and causing confusion and disarray within their ranks. Additionally, a salvo can be used to saturate an area, denying the enemy the opportunity to maneuver or to hold strategic positions. In naval warfare, launching a salvo means firing all guns on one side of a ship simultaneously at a target, maximizing damage potential. The effectiveness of a salvo depends on precise timing and coordination among all units involved, making it a powerful but resource-intensive tactic. Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love. Hull down position. The hull down position is a tactical maneuver primarily used by armored vehicles such as tanks and armored personnel carriers. In this tactic, the vehicle positions itself behind a terrain feature, like a hill or a ridge, so that only the turret, where the primary weapon and observation equipment are located, is visible to the enemy. This tactic significantly reduces the visible profile of the vehicle, making it a smaller and more difficult target to hit. The advantages of a hull-down position are manifold. It maximizes the defensive capabilities of the vehicle while still allowing it to engage the enemy effectively. The armor on the turret is usually thicker and better angled to deflect incoming fire, enhancing survivability. From this position, a tank or APC can lay down fire, conduct surveillance, and coordinate with other units, all while maintaining a high level of protection. Utilizing terrain effectively is a key element of modern armored warfare, and the hull-down tactic is a prime example of this principle in action. Commanders must have a keen eye for suitable terrain and the ability to rapidly position their units to take advantage of it. This tactic underscores the blend of offensive capability and defensive prudence that characterizes successful armored engagements. Creeping barrage. The creeping barrage is an artillery tactic developed during World War I as a method to support advancing infantry. It involves laying down a continuous line of artillery fire just ahead of the infantry's forward progress, effectively creeping forward in synchronization with the troops on the ground. This barrage serves multiple purposes. It suppresses and disorients enemy forces, destroys fortifications, and clears obstacles, allowing infantry to advance with reduced risk of counterattack. A creeping barrage requires meticulous timing and coordination between artillery units and infantry to ensure that the shells impact the enemy positions just before the ground troops reach them, but not so close as to endanger the advancing soldiers themselves. The effectiveness of this tactic relies on precise communication and the ability to adjust fire in real time based on the progress of the infantry and the response of the enemy. Historically, this tactic was pivotal in breaking through entrenched positions, though it came with high risks and required substantial artillery resources. In modern warfare, while direct artillery support remains vital, the principles of the creeping barrage have evolved with technology to include more precise and varied forms of fire support, such as guided munitions and air support, reducing risk to ground forces while increasing effectiveness against enemy defenses. Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg, which translates to lightning war, is a military tactic that emphasizes speed and surprise to disrupt and disorient enemy defenses. Developed by the German military in the early 20th century, this tactic combines rapid, coordinated assaults using armored units, motorized infantry, and air support. Blitzkrieg aims to break through enemy lines with overwhelming force at specific points, exploiting the shock and disorganization caused by the initial attack to encircle and isolate enemy units. The key elements of Blitzkrieg include speed, coordination, and the element of surprise. By moving quickly and striking hard, forces employing Blitzkrieg can prevent the enemy from organizing a coherent defense or counterattack. The use of armored tanks to penetrate defenses, followed by motorized infantry to exploit the breaches, and close air support to disrupt enemy movements and supply lines, are hallmarks of this approach. Blitzkrieg was notably effective during the early stages of World War II, as seen in the rapid German conquests of Poland, France, and other parts of Europe. It relies heavily on maintaining momentum and logistics, making it vulnerable if the initial thrusts are halted or if supply lines are overextended. The tactic's success also depends on technological and operational superiority, as well as the ability to maintain secrecy and surprise in the planning stages. Foxholes. A foxhole, also known as a fighting position, is a simple dugout used by infantry on the battlefield to provide protection against enemy fire and improve defensive capabilities. These small pits are usually big enough for 1 or 2 soldiers to kneel or lie down and are often dug hastily using entrenching tools or even by hand in emergency situations. The primary advantage of a foxhole is its ability to blend with the natural environment, offering concealment while reducing the soldier's silhouette, making it a harder target for snipers and artillery. Foxholes are strategically placed to maximize fields of fire and are often used in conjunction with other defensive structures like sandbags, which add extra protection and absorb the impact of bullets and shrapnel. From a tactical perspective, foxholes represent a fundamental aspect of infantry warfare, providing a temporary but effective safe haven in exposed and vulnerable areas. When properly arranged in patterns or lines, these positions can form a cohesive defensive network, allowing units to support each other while maintaining a defensive stance. Over time, foxholes can be expanded into more complex trench systems, offering greater protection and facilitating more prolonged defensive operations. Decoy and Ambush. The tactic of using decoys along with ambushes is a classic military strategy designed to mislead the enemy and induce them into a trap. This involves setting up a decoy, an apparent but false target or position, that attracts the enemy's attention and leads them to believe they have identified a key opportunity or vulnerability. Once the enemy is lured in by the decoy, they are led into a prearranged ambush where hidden forces are waiting to strike. The effectiveness of this tactic hinges on the believability of the decoy and the discipline of the ambush team. The decoy must be convincing enough to draw the enemy into committing their resources or altering their course of action. This could involve mimicry of troop movements, the use of dummy equipment like fake artillery positions, or feigned retreats that give the impression of a collapsing front. Meanwhile, the ambush team must remain concealed and patient, often in a fortified or advantageous position, ready to unleash their attack at the optimal moment. This sudden onslaught capitalizes on the element of surprise and the enemy's preoccupation with the decoy, typically resulting in significant psychological and physical impacts. Using decoys and ambushes requires meticulous planning, intelligence gathering, and coordination, but when executed successfully, it can decisively shift the balance of an engagement by turning an enemy's strengths or aggressiveness against them. Envelopment. Envelopment is a military tactic where attacking forces seek to avoid the strongest part of an enemy's defenses by targeting the flanks, sides, or rear, aiming to encircle or cut off the enemy from their lines of supply and retreat. This tactic is designed to exploit the vulnerabilities in the enemy's positioning and to create confusion and disorder within their ranks. The key to successful envelopment lies in mobility and surprise. Forces must be able to move quickly and covertly to the sides or behind enemy lines before the enemy can react effectively. This often requires detailed reconnaissance to identify the weakest points in the enemy's defenses and the best routes for movement. Once the flanks are secured, the encircling units work to tighten the circle, squeezing the enemy forces and cutting off their options for escape and resupply. This can force the enemy into a disadvantageous position, leading to a surrender or destruction, as their ability to fight effectively is compromised by logistical difficulties and dwindling resources. Historically, successful envelopments, like the German Blitzkrieg during World War II or Hannibal's tactics at the Battle of Cannae, have led to decisive victories. Envelopment remains a fundamental tactic in modern warfare, adapted to include not just ground forces but also air and naval assets, enhancing the potential to surround and isolate enemy units comprehensively. Vertical envelopment. Vertical envelopment is an advanced military tactic that utilizes airborne forces, such as paratroopers or helicopter-borne troops, to perform an attack by descending from the sky, bypassing traditional ground defenses and obstacles. This form of envelopment seeks to exploit the third dimension, height, adding a layer of surprise and complexity to the battlefield dynamics. The crux of vertical envelopment lies in its ability to rapidly project force into enemy rear areas, potentially seizing key positions such as command centers, supply depots, and communication hubs. By doing so, it disrupts the enemy's operational capabilities and can significantly alter the course of battle. The tactic requires precise coordination with ground and air units to ensure that once the airborne troops have landed, they can be resupplied and reinforced before the enemy can organize an effective counterattack. Vertical envelopment was notably used during World War II in operations like the D-Day landings and the Market Garden operation, where airborne troops played critical roles. In modern warfare, this tactic has evolved with technology, incorporating not just paratroopers but also air assault units that can be quickly deployed via helicopters, providing even greater speed and flexibility. The success of vertical envelopment hinges on surprise, speed, and the effective integration of different military branches. It demands high levels of planning, intelligence, and logistical support to ensure that once forces are on the ground, they can sustain their operations until achieving their strategic objectives. The tactic's effectiveness relies on its ability to rapidly insert forces into key areas, often catching the enemy off guard and disrupting their defensive plans. Psychological warfare. Psychological warfare is a tactic used to influence, deceive, or intimidate an enemy in order to weaken their morale and reduce their willingness or capability to fight. This type of warfare can be conducted using various methods, including propaganda, misinformation, threats, and subversion. The goal is not just to mislead or demoralize the enemy but also to sway public opinion and the morale of the enemy's civilian population. Effective psychological operations, PSYOPs, target the psychological weaknesses of the enemy, exploiting fears, creating confusion, sowing doubt among troops and leaders, and disrupting their decision-making processes. Techniques can range from dropping leaflets that spread disinformation or encourage defection, to broadcast messages that may exaggerate the strength and success of one's own forces, to more subtle methods like cyber operations that manipulate information or communications. Psychological warfare extends beyond the battlefield. It encompasses diplomatic, economic, and social domains, aiming to achieve a comprehensive strategic advantage. It can precede, accompany, and follow more traditional forms of military engagement, making it a continuous element of both conflict and competition. The impact of psychological warfare can be profound, often contributing to the collapse of enemy morale and facilitating a quicker end to hostilities with potentially fewer conventional military engagements. As technology evolves, so do the methods of psychological warfare, incorporating advanced media and cyber capabilities to influence and manipulate perceptions on a global scale. Area denial. Area denial is a military strategy aimed at preventing an enemy from using specific areas of terrain without having to permanently occupy them. This can be achieved through various means, such as the deployment of land mines, barbed wire, obstacles, or the use of long-range artillery, airstrikes, and missile attacks. The primary goal of area denial is to constrain the enemy's movement, funnel their forces into more vulnerable areas, or completely block access to crucial resources and routes. One common form of area denial is the use of minefields. Mines can be anti-personnel or anti-vehicle, laid out in strategic areas to deter enemy movement or to inflict casualties and material damage should the enemy attempt to breach them. Another method involves the strategic use of artillery and air-delivered munitions to create fire barriers that effectively render areas too hazardous to pass. Area denial can also be extended to naval warfare through the use of sea mines, submarine patrols, and long-range missiles to prevent access to maritime zones or to protect coastlines. In the air, tactics might include the deployment of anti-aircraft systems and aggressive air patrols to deny enemy aircraft the ability to operate freely over key areas. Modern area denial strategies often incorporate electronic warfare techniques to disrupt enemy communications and navigation. This can include jamming radar and GPS signals to confuse and halt enemy forces, further enhancing the effectiveness of physical deterrence. This tactic requires continuous monitoring and control, as the areas must be effectively rendered unusable or unapproachable to the enemy while remaining manageable for friendly forces, possibly including eventual deactivation or clearing operations post-conflict. Cyber warfare. Cyber warfare involves the use of digital attacks to disrupt, disable, or take control of the information networks of enemy states or organizations. This modern form of warfare targets critical infrastructure, communication networks, and other strategic assets, aiming to achieve military objectives without the need for conventional kinetic actions. Cyber operations can be conducted remotely, offering a means to inflict damage or gather intelligence while maintaining a degree of anonymity and minimizing physical risk to military personnel.